What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine. This is Propability. We're going to take a data-driven look into all the props for UFC 278. We have Kamaru Usman going against Leon Edwards, a 13-fight card. We have most of the props out. We're ready to go. We are here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? How you doing? And I was taking a look at your screen during the countdown, and I saw something. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, man. It's Wu Yanan fight week, ladies and gentlemen. And I was wrong. I have to admit when I was wrong on Stat Diggers. Look, Wu Yanan is indeed a part of the Wu-Tang Clan. I thought she wasn't affiliated with them. I had thought she was actually affiliated with them before, and then I was told I was sorely mistaken. So here we go, man. You see her right there with Raekwon the chef, with the RZA, the Jizza. Rest in peace, old dirty bastard, of course. But, we've got everybody there. I mean, it's all right there. It's on the screen. It's Wu Yanan fight week. It's Harry Hunsucker fight week. And we've got a 170-pound championship bout to talk about as well. So I'm fired up, man. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
How can a head of hair like that on Wu Yanan not fire you up? But yeah, guys, we're going to be talking about all these fights here. Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like, subscribe here to the channel. Let's keep growing the MMA Engine. And we have some very special content tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Uncle Weezy and Lou Betcha are going to be interviewing the one and only Jay Perrin. I cannot wait for that. It's going to be a fun one. I will definitely be there. Make sure you guys are as well. And yeah, I say we just jump right into it here, Weezy. We have a lot to talk about. We will start with the very first fight of the night. We have Victor Altamirano going against Daniel Da Silva. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 rounds is plus 125. The under 2.5 rounds is minus 155. BetOnline does not have out the props for like the early prelims, but BetOnline has the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 175, and the fight goes to decision at plus 135. So Weezy, I was telling you earlier, I stayed up till 5 o'clock a.m. waiting for these props to drop. I set my alarm for 11 in the morning. I woke up at like 10 in the morning, and I look, and the props are there. They're already smashed, and my goodness, man. This under 2.5 on BetOnline opened up at plus 160, was it? Like plus 165? And man, what I would do to get a plus 160 and even like just plus money in general. But I woke up, it was like minus 110, ended up passing, ended up paying for it. It's currently sitting at minus 155. Weezy, I think it's a good spot to finish inside the distance, but man, not getting that plus money hurts. Daniel Da Silva, killer be killed fighter, has never seen the third round. I think this one does finish, but man, just sucks missing the price by that much.
Man, 11 of 11 wins inside the distance, 3 of 3 losses inside the distance, 14 of 14 fights finishing inside the distance. And like you mentioned, dude's never even seen a third round before. So he fights like he's double parked. He is not getting paid by the hour in there, and he fights like that. So, and then we've got Altamirano, who we've seen go to decision, as many times as he's finished fights in his career, as 5 of his 10 wins are by decision. 1 of his 2 losses is by decision. So 50% of his 12 pro fights have went to decision. So, you've got a guy who tends to take his time a little bit more, which is why we got that plus 160 in the first place, because we know that the under 2.5 percentage here, if we take this number here, which is the implied probability of the line, 52.38%. And we compare that to the divisional finish rate. We see that the divisional finish rate is about 37% to go under 2.5 rounds at 125 pounds. So we're overpaying by 15.31% there. And when we compare the finish rates of the fighters to the implied probability of the line, well, we've got Altamirano, who's been to decision twice, and Lacerda, who's been inside the distance twice. So it's only 50%. So it actually wound up opening about where it should for when you would expect 2 fighters that have 50% of their combined UFC fights finishing inside the distance. What their algorithm didn't take into account was the fact that 1 fighter was a killer be killed fighter. It's such an important piece of information that this guy has never seen a third round before. But unfortunately, when we look at this number right here, that's comparing the implied probability of the line, which is 63.64%, to the divisional finish rate, which in this case is about 40%, 41% for the division. So we're overpaying by 23% there. We're paying, where do you see the under 2.5? Because that had to have moved from -110.
Yeah, it got smashed. It got smashed on DraftKings. It got smashed on BetOnline. It got smashed on Bovada. It is currently -155.
Yeah. So that makes all the difference in the world. You see that red there, 23.72% we're overpaying there. 23.12% we're overpaying here. When we compare that implied probability to the long-term benchmark, that just tells us that, yeah, there's violence is on tap here. Of course it probably hits because it's a Daniel Lacerda fight, Daniel da Silva, whatever name you want to use for him. He's Brazilian, so he's got like 14 last names.
Yeah.
So, but I've been calling him Lacerda from the start, so I've just kept him in my database under that name. But it's probably a parlay piece, that it doesn't go to decision. Just know you're really overpaying for it when you compare it to the flyweight benchmark for finish rates. But it's a Daniel Lacerda fight, so let's call this as it's going to hit, but you're overpaying for it. So tread very lightly.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm like that confident in it. Like Altamirano is not much of a finisher. He is supposedly a black belt, but he's been submitted quite a bit. I was actually maybe thinking about taking like a Silva finish only, or like a Silva scorecards equals no action. I'm curious to see if they put that at plus money because he's super dangerous on the feet, has a ton of power on the mat, very aggressive with the submissions. So if they could put that finish only for Daniel da Silva at plus money, I might take a look at it. But yeah, I mean, I like the under, but I would have liked it a lot more at plus 160. I would have liked it at plus 140. I would have liked it at plus 115, and even like minus 110. I didn't hate, but still didn't want to go and bet that. And now it's minus 155. So I think I'm going to pass on it. Maybe take a look at some other props there. Silva early props, Altamirano, maybe a third round sprinkle for him. But yeah, this is a fight that I won't have a ton of action in, I don't think.
Yeah, and not only that, we got to keep in mind we're in Salt Lake City, almost 5,000 feet of altitude, and Lacerda's conditioning is deplorable. And it might not even really be that bad, but I think there's a pacing issue with this dude. I mean, he's just trying to finish fights when you're just constantly, shooting takedowns, hunting for submissions, throwing head kicks at 100% force. You're not gonna be able to push that pace for too long. And this being at elevation, I think, makes it even more likely that it finishes inside the distance. Unfortunately, even though we moved the show to Monday, Brady, it still wasn't early enough to catch these damn lines, man. We have to do this show at like 7:30 in the morning on Monday to have caught this line and alerted you guys to it. But it's been smashed. It probably hits. Let's parlay it. Let's put it in the parlay here. But yeah, man, it's so overpriced.
Yeah. Maybe like the fight won't start round 3. Maybe that they'll mess that line up. Still has never been to round 3, but we'll have to see what they do with that. All right, we'll keep moving on. We have Arichi Long going against Jay Perrin here. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 200, under 2.5 rounds plus 160. We have the fight goes to decision. This is on 5 dimes, minus 175. The fight doesn't go to decision, plus 135. This is one I was talking to you about last night on Stat Diggers Weezy, where I was hoping to get some maybe recency bias here because Arichi Long went out there and finished Cameron Else in his last fight. Was hoping to get a nice price on this over where the fight goes because, both guys are so tough. I think they have like a combined 46 fights. Neither guy's ever been knocked out. Both guys can take a shot. I was kind of leaning over, was kind of hoping to get a better price on it, but it looks like they are all over at minus 200 there.
They are, and we could take a look at these violence props here. I mean, overpaying by 17% here for when we compare the fighter finish rates to the implied probability of the line. And when we compare the fighter finish rates to the divisional finish rate, we're overpaying by 24%. But the long-term benchmark shows us underpriced by 7% almost. So it's clear that people are looking at the fight goes to decision here. As we can see over here for the fight goes, we're overpaying by 13% when we compare that long-term benchmark to the implied probability of the line, which makes it kind of interesting because Jay Perrin was saying on Twitter today that he's either leaving that cage with his shield or on it. So, he might be coming for blood here, and we know that AQ swings hammers and that dude is a real warrior too. But, what's kind of interesting here, AQ's fights have only finished inside the distance 40% of the time,
Mhm.
and it's 46% of the time for Jay Perrin. And when we click down here, only one of their 4 combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance, and that was against Cameron Else, who was like kind of like Daniel De Silva when it comes to seeing second rounds. It just doesn't happen often in an Else fight. So, I think right now we may be overpaying by 13% and almost 10% here when we're looking at these fight goes and the over 2.5 lines that we have here. But we got to come, we have to keep in mind that 57.5% of their fights have went to decision overall. And a lot of those are regional scene fights, and you usually see higher finish rates than that on the regional scene, especially from UFC fighters, because, you don't get invited to the UFC if you're winning 8 out of 10 regional scene fights by decision. It just doesn't happen often. So, it looks like we're overpaying here when we look at these 3 numbers, but also we can see that there is some value here when we compare, for instance, the divisional finish rate to these guys' finish rates, and also the benchmark to these guys' finish rates. So, fight goes to decision at -175 or the over 2.5 at -200. They look bettable, but remember, it's a small sample size. It feels like a stay away in terms of the time props for me. But if I had to bet, I would probably bet that over 2.5 at -200.
Yeah, it was one I kind of had circled, but I was hoping for a much better price there because these guys are going to go to war. I mean, it's going to be a sweaty over for sure, but I do think both guys have extreme toughness, and I cannot wait to hear what Jay Perrin has to say tomorrow on that interview on the MMA Engine. So make sure you guys tune into that. We'll see if Jay can give us some insight there. We'll move on to the next fight. We have Amir Albazi going against Francisco Figueiredo with the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 -170, under 2.5 +140. The fight goes to decision. This is on 5 dimes -135. The fight doesn't go to decision is -105. This is a tricky one for me, Weezy, because I feel like Amir Albazi wins this fight, and I don't think Francisco Figueiredo is the best fighter in the world, but what he is, he seems like he's really tough. Seems like his submission defense is on point. I was kind of leading like Albazi, like by decision, maybe 3rd round decision if we do see Figueiredo slow down. So I think if there is a stoppage in this fight, it's kind of later. So I'm kind of leaning that over 2.5, but don't know if I'll bet it. Curious to see what the numbers say on this one.
What do you got for the fight goes right now?
On 5 dimes, it's +1 or it's -135.
-135. We almost had a small little all right. So we've got a little bit of a trifecta here where we've at the -135 fight goes to decision. We're getting a 2% break over the implied probability of the line when we compare the divisional finish rate to that. We're getting a 2.55% break when we compare the fighter finish rates at the UFC level to the implied probability of the line, and a 0.52% break. So it looks like this line is priced correctly here, but it looks like it's just shading a little more value towards the fight goes side here. And we can see that 25 of their 34 combined fights have finished inside the distance as pros, but we see that number going dramatically down here at the UFC level when they're not fighting regional scene competition. And whether it's Albazi or Francisco Figueiredo, neither one of these guys was fighting what I would call high-level regional scene guys. They weren't in ACB or in Brave or in LFA or CFFC, for instance. It was a lot of regional scene European, Brazilian type of opponents here. So they're not finishing at the same rate at the UFC level as they were outside of it. And we can see, 60% of their combined fights at the UFC level have went to decision. And look, we're only paying 57.5% for the fight goes here and 62.26% for the over 2.5. So I would say that this is absolutely fairly priced right here. I think these guys are going to grapple. But I don't think that Francisco Figueiredo has ever been subbed. Let me just go to my stats here real quick and look.
He has, but it was like 10 years ago.
Okay, yeah. One of his 4 losses by submission, one of them by knockout, and Albazi has never been finished. Albazi gets way more submissions than he does knockouts, and it's the same for Figueiredo. So, but both of these guys are black belts. I know Albazi's at least a purple belt, but that was a long time ago. He hasn't fought in a year and a half, so he might be a brown belt by now.
Yeah, I think he is.
And I think Francisco Figueiredo is either a brown belt or a black belt, if I'm not mistaken. He's been around, almost a 13-year pro career. So it's safe to assume with a Brazilian with the last name Figueiredo and a 13-year MMA career is probably a black belt. So yeah, fight goes to decision is the way I'm looking here, but dude, it's just not jumping off the page with the price. That's where the value is shaded towards, but it's not screaming bet me.
Yeah, and my concern is that higher elevation. I think it's going to be a very fast-paced fight. Albazi brings a very fast pace, and the conditioning of Figueiredo kind of concerns me. So again, I think it's another one that could get sweaty late, but I do lean towards this one going to decision as well. All right, we have the next fight here. We have AJ Fletcher going against Angelusa. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. We have the over 2.5 minus 165. The under 2.5 plus 135. We have the fight goes to decision sitting on 5 dimes minus 135, and the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 105. This one's an interesting one because we have two guys that are very, very, very good finishers, and we have two guys that are very, very, very tough. So yeah, kind of another tricky one here. These guys are both dangerous, but both these guys have unreal chins, especially Angelusa.
Yeah, man, no quit in either one of these dudes. So yeah, when we look at the violence side, we're seeing that with these three lines, the 195 for the under 1.5, the 115 for the under 2.5, and the minus 105 for the fight doesn't go. All of them, when we compare the long-term benchmark, are overpriced from 0% to about 2.5%, right? But when we compare the fighter finish rates at the UFC level to these implied probabilities, we see huge gaps here, and that's because of this. Only one of their 4 combined fights has actually finished inside the distance here. So we've got 3 out of their 4 fights at the UFC level that are going to decision, and this is another case of you're gonna go to decision at a higher clip at the UFC level when you're fighting tougher dudes. And these are 2 guys who have small sample sizes worth of fights at the UFC level here. So a little bit of value here on these non-violence lines, as we see that we're overpaying when we compare the benchmark to the implied probabilities by between 3.5 and a little over 6%. But when we compare the small sample size numbers that we have, we're getting a lot of big plus numbers here. And we can count on the fact, if we bet this fight goes to decision, that these guys have never been finished. And we've got a decent sample size of fights. Look, 21 combined fights between Lucie and Fletcher as professionals. Neither one of them has ever been finished. So the fight goes at minus 135, only being overpriced by 6.16%. is definitely compelling. But if we can get that over 2.5 at minus 145 still, we see it's only overpriced by 3.68% compared to the 6.16%. So there might be a little more value if that over 2.5 hasn't moved yet. That one would be the one you'd bet for the over here.
Yeah, it moved. It's now minus 165.
Yikes. All right. Now that one is even 0.6% more overpriced than this one we compared to the benchmark. So, yeah, the line is moving. People are betting the overs in the fight goes for this fight, and it's not a bad look seeing as neither one of these guys has ever been finished.
Yep, I think I would lean that way as well. Just relying on both guys and their toughness. I mean, you need a baseball bat to knock out Angelusa. I mean, Jack Della Maddalena hit him with everything, and he just kept walking forward. And you can't question AJ Fletcher's toughness as well. So I think the fight goes is where I'd be looking. I don't think that's a terrible look at the price. All right, next we have a very interesting Weezy. I can't wait to get your thoughts on this one. So we have Miranda Maverick going against Shanna Young here. And this was happening when me and you were sleeping. Apparently, we have to pull all-nighters nowadays to get some of these lines. But so they open up the under 2.5 rounds at plus 250. plus 250, under 2.5. And that line was there for an hour. It was there for 58 minutes. And then it got down to plus 200, plus 190, plus 140, plus 100. And it is now currently plus 100. So that line opened up at plus 250 for the under, and it got completely smashed all the way down to plus 100. And we will take a look at what the fight goes and doesn't go is on 5 dimes. So the fight goes to decision on 5 dimes is sitting at minus 130, and the fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at minus 110 there. So yeah, I would have loved that plus 250 for that under 2.5. This is a spot where I do personally think Maverick finishes Shanna Young, and I think it can even happen early. So I would lean towards that fight doesn't go, but I think I'm going to be taking a look at this one from a Miranda Maverick prop perspective. I'm going to be taking a look at the sub, Maverick inside the distance. Don't think I'll be touching the totals on this one, but I'm curious to see what the numbers say on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, so obviously when that opened up at plus 250, people liked it, and here's why. When you look at these two ladies at the UFC level, over half of their fights are finishing, right? 55.56%. And I believe I've got the analytic down here. Yeah, 40.25% of these fights finish inside the distance. They're finishing at 55%. So when we compare those two numbers, we see a 15.3% difference between how these ladies finish their fights at the UFC level, for and against, compared to the overall benchmark. And we see that we're also getting a 3% break when we compare the fighter finish rates to the implied probability of the line at 52.4%. And we're overpaying by 12%, 13.5%, and 13.2% for all of these violence bets, whether it's the fight doesn't go to decision, the under 2.5, or the under 1.5. So people are expecting Miranda Maverick to go out there and finish Shanna Young, okay? But here's the thing. We're starting to get a little bit of value here. 7.65%, 7%, 3.23%. When we compare the probability of the line here, and I had the over 2.5 at the same price as the fight goes to decision earlier. So that's definitely value. You just take the over 2.5, obviously, instead of the fight goes here because it's the same price. But we see that when we compare their decision rates and their over 2.5 rates to the implied probability of the line, it's just you're just overpaying, because in this small sample size, only 4 of their 9 combined fights have went to decision, only 44%. So it's 12% difference here, 12% difference here. We're overpaying for violence here. We are overpaying for violence, and we're overpaying for the Miranda Maverick money line. So maybe you just kind of go the other way here. You go with that minus 130 for over 2.5, knowing that these fights go over 2.5 63% of the time, not 56% of the time. And that it's not like Miranda Maverick is going out there and finishing people at the UFC level at a crazy rate. She finished Liana Jojua because of a cut to the nose, but Liana could have continued in that fight. And then I don't remember who the other finish was.
Sabina Mazo.
Who?
Mazo.
Oh, Mazo. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Mazo is probably on Shanna Young's level, if not better than Shanna Young. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Maverick gets the maybe she does get the finish here. But if you're of the opinion that Shanna Young can last the full 3 rounds here, maybe wait for this fight goes to decision to get closer to even money, because at that point, you'll be getting about a 10% break. If you can get it around plus 100, and something tells me these violence lines are going to keep going because they're expecting Miranda Maverick to get this win inside the distance. And she's already a minus 500 favorite, but is Shanna Young really going to finish Miranda Maverick? Probably not. Is Miranda Maverick going to gas out like she's Gina Mazzani? We've never seen that before. So, it's kind of like, if you like the violence props, maybe just at better than minus 110, if you can get Maverick inside the distance, do that. Because these time props are a little bit overpriced for violence, and I think the violence only comes one way here. So it's hard to see how Shanna Young wins this fight. Miranda Maverick is probably better than her everywhere.
Unless Miranda Maverick takes some tips from Lupe Godinez, anything can happen. But yeah, I'm not touching this from a time prop perspective. And looks like I think more money is going to keep coming in on this violence. Like you said, a lot of people do expect this fight to finish. including me. But I won't be touching the props here. I'm going to be taking a look at see what like Maverick by sub is, props like that. But from a time prop perspective, probably going to be staying away on this one. Let us move on to the next fight here. We have Sean Woodson going against Luis Saldana. And BetOnline has all the props out for all the following fights. So there we go. Shout out to BetOnline. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 140. The under 2.5 is plus 110. So the under 2.5 opened up at plus 160 and has got bet down to plus 110. So money is coming in on these unders. The fight goes to decision is minus 120. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 110. I personally think this fight has a pretty solid chance of finishing. Saldana has a really good finish rate outside the UFC. His finishing ability has not really translated. But Sean Woodson looked like an absolute killer in his last fight against England. And there's a big hole in the game plan of Luis Saldana. That's the cardio. I would look at the fight doesn't go here, but I'm going to be sprinkling those Sean Woodson second and third round props. I think they're going to be super live here. But I am curious to see what the numbers say about this fight goes. If fight doesn't go at about a pick 'em, Weezy.
Yeah, it's a fascinating fight because Saldana's got a conditioning problem that has been, just very evident to anybody that's watched his fights. You go, my God, if you see a heavyweight getting tired like that, you're like, okay, but a featherweight, that's a bad thing, man. You don't want to be 145 pounds and have a conditioning problem at this level. And then now it's like, oh, you're taking a fight in Salt Lake City, almost 5,000 feet in altitude where it's going to be difficult for you to be catching your breath, for you to be taking in that oxygen. Oh, man, it's a bad spot here for Saldana. But Sean Woodson's got 9 career wins and only 4 of them are inside the distance. So it's not like this guy is this killer. He looked fantastic and he looked like he was throwing with a lot more power against Colin Anglin. But prior to that, Woodson was a pillow fist, to be quite frank. He knocked out McKinney when he was exhausted with a jump knee. But, the Erosa fight in particular, he showed that his fists weren't doing damage, and he seemed to have maybe fixed that in the gym, learned how to strike with more power, with more purpose, and we saw that on display in the Anglin fight. If he continues throwing with that much power and purpose in this fight, the fight doesn't go at minus 110, being overpriced by 9.12% when we compare that line to the benchmark, and overpriced by 8% when we compare the finish rates of these two fighters at the UFC level, which is 44.44%, 4 out of 9, to the implied probability of the line, which is 52.38%. And we're getting a 1.18% break. So we're overpaying, and the statistics aren't giving us a big reason to overpay here. If you throw out Woodson's last performance against Anglin, who's not known to be a good striker, who's more of a wrestler, right? If you throw out that last performance, this fight goes here as a bit of a gift at minus 130. But the analytics don't love it either. The over 2.5, if we can still get that at minus 140, that would look pretty good to me. Because it's a 3.44% break instead of a 0.22% break when you compare it to the benchmark. And the fighters over 2.5 history in the UFC level compared to the implied probability of the line, we see that they're about 65%. So that's pretty good. We don't mind that. We're getting some nice plus numbers here for the over 2.5, but that probably has moved, hasn't it?
No.
It hasn't. Nope. Well, we've got a trifecta here for the over 2.5. 3.44% break when you compare that 58.33 to the benchmark, an 8.33% break when you compare the over 2.5 history of these two fighters at the UFC level to the implied probability of the line. And then when you compare these guys over 2.5 rate to the benchmark over 2.5, we're getting almost a 5% break. Add those three numbers together, you're getting over 18%. That would probably be the bet that the analytics like the most for this one will be the over 2.5 in this spot.
Yep. I think the over 2.5 is excuse me.
Yeah, Brady's just sick of a lot of things here, and I mean, I know this guy when he stays up until 5 a.m. waiting for lines, and then they come out when he's sleeping. It's enough to nearly put him in the hospital. So we're lucky he even showed up today, and he's already done a show already. So big ups for being here, brother.
Appreciate it. I was choking on something, but I was just gonna say, like, I think the over is solid, but kind of like the Albazi Figueiredo fight, the cardio is kind of what concerns me on the Saldana fight, especially in the high altitude. And if Woodson goes to the body early, I don't know. I feel like a Woodson. I'll be taking a look at the Woodson props here. The Woodson round 3 is something I have my eye on, but. Yeah, I don't hate the under 2.5 or the over 2.5, and I'm curious to see where that line does go as well. Looks like money's still coming in on these unders, so we'll see. We've got a donut in here, Jack Day Berlin saying, "Love your work, lads. Appreciate you, Jack. You are the man. Appreciate the dono and appreciate you for hanging out with us on a Monday."
Oh no! Here we go again. The poor guy. He's dying over here, you guys.
As I am still dying.
Bet online. Get your lines out at 3 a.m. in the morning, please. When decent people like me and Brady are still awake because we're content creators, this 8 a.m. shit isn't gonna fly. You're killing the kid. He's not even 30 yet.
I am dying. I don't know what's going on, but we will keep moving on here. I think I'll be all right. We have the next fight. We have Lucie. Oh boy, Lucie Pudilova. Oh my, going against. See, this is why I'm not feeling too well right now. Fights like this, we have Yanan, Lucie Pudilova, over 2.5 rounds, minus 350, under 2.5, plus 275. The fight goes to decision, minus 325. The fight doesn't go is plus 250. No. Just no.
Just no. This is a 1-800 gambler fight, ladies and gentlemen. But let's see. Let's go through the stats because that's our job, Brady. 15 of their 36 combined fights have finished inside the distance, 41.67%. At the UFC level, though, only 2 of their 12 fights have finished inside the distance. And as a matter of fact, I believe Lucie Pudilova, who's went 4-1 since she got cut from the UFC in Octagon, I believe all 5 of those fights have went to decision. Yes, split decision, unanimous, split, unanimous. Other than the submission win against Lauren Princess Tiger Mueller, Brady, 9 of these 10 ladies' last 10 fights have went to decision here. So we're obviously paying up for the fight goes here and for the over 2.5. But here's what I'm seeing, right? Only 2% difference from minus 300 to minus 350, right? 75% implied probability at minus 300, 77.78% implied probability at minus 350 for the over here, right? And we're overpaying by 10.1% here when we compare the benchmark to that line, but we're only overpaying by 6.25% here. So since there's an actually really big amount of women's 135-pound 3-round fights that finish in the last 2.5 minutes, it's actually close to something like 2.4. So yeah, about almost 7% of the fights actually do finish in that last 2.5. So the analytics like the minus 350 for over 2.5, especially in the altitude, a lot more than the minus 300. So I would bless this bet first, even though the analytics do like the fight goes at minus 300 a little bit better when you're comparing the fighter histories at the UFC level to the implied probability of the line and to the benchmark for the division. But it's hard to see either of these ladies getting a finish here. So yeah, I believe this fight does go to decision. Minus 300 for the fight goes, or minus 350 for the over 2.5 could be a parlay piece this week.
It could. I think it's a really good spot. The only problem I have is, just putting money on this fight is just terrifying to me. But yeah, I think the overs are extremely good. Like if there's a finish in this fight, how does it happen? Like, is there an armbar from guard? I think that's what it'd have to be, like an armbar from guard. Both fighters very tough on the feet. I think Pudilova has been submitted by Antonina Shevchenko. I don't like that, but Wu Yanan only submitted Lauren Mueller. Yeah, I think the over 2.5 is something that I would look at as a parlay piece, but putting money on this fight just makes me feel uncomfortable, but it's a good spot.
Yeah, you look here, Wu Yanan's a finisher. 82% of her 11 wins are inside the distance, but Pudilova has only been finished once in 7 losses, and Wu Yanan's only been finished once in 5 losses. And if she is a member of the Wu-Tang clan, you're going to need a gun to get her out of there. Come on, man. So, yeah, I like the fight goes here, but remind yourself, right? You're laying minus 300 on a low-level women's fight. No matter what the outcome is, if that goes tits up for you, dude, you're going to be hurting. You're going to be really questioning yourself, maybe having a soliloquy in the mirror, not unlike Brady's soliloquy at the beginning of Stat Diggers this week. So, yeah, let's just tread really, really lightly. For our guy, UFC Egg, that puts together those awesome graphics for us on Twitter.
Yeah, those are awesome.
with the parlay information, where he tags Paul Shag and CJ Safdie because he does the PRP with the probability stuff. That would be the last leg, right? That's the bottom leg. This is the 1-800-GAMBLER fight, but let's put that minus 300 or the minus 350 for the over 2.5. Let's do the over 2.5 at minus 350. Last leg of the parlay.
Sounds good. Yeah, shout out to UFC Egg. Those are pretty cool. I got to start getting into those PRP thing. The probability PRP, I think, is pretty awesome there.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This is a very, very, very intriguing one for me, Weezy. We have Jared Gordon going against Leonardo Santos. We have, I love it. I love it so much.
I just had to put it up again. I'm sorry, man.
No, the viewers enjoy it. The viewers enjoy it as well. We have, my goodness, I love it. We have the Jared Gordon Santos, the over under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 170, the under 2.5 is plus 140. The fight goes decision minus 150. The fight doesn't go decision is plus 120. Why I think this is so intriguing, Weezy, is because we have Jared Gordon, who's been finished a ton. He's been knocked out like 4 times in the UFC. I think he's got knocked out once outside the UFC. And then we have Leonardo Santos, who's a very, very good finisher, very dangerous on the feet, very dangerous on the mat. And then we also have Leonardo Santos, who has slowed down in his last several fights. He slowed down bad against Bogotov. He slowed down, obviously, really bad against Clay Guida. And if this fight does get extended, we are in high altitude. What does Santos look like in that second and third round at 42 and a half years old? And then in the first round, Santos is going to be extremely live to go out here and finish Gordon. So I think the fight doesn't go at plus 120 is pretty intriguing. Although Gordon's not much of a finisher really at all. Clay Guida wasn't really much of a finisher either. So I could see maybe a late Gordon finish. I could see an early Santos finish as well. And then another prop that I was kind of taking a look at, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on it, is the scorecards equals no action for Santos, which is plus 155 is something I was highly considering there. But yeah, this should be a really interesting one here to break down.
Well, let's take a look at the numbers. First of all, if we're looking at a violence bet, one of the first things I always look at is, where are the losses? 8 of 10 combined pro losses for Leo Santos and Jared Gordon are inside the distance. 3 of 5 for Santos, 5 of 5 for Gordon. So 80% of their combined losses are coming inside the distance, but only 55% of their combined wins. So 60% about of their combined pro fights have finished inside the distance. And at the UFC level, it's 55%. You could see there's not much divergence between the 60% finish rate for Santos and the 50% finish rate for Gordon here. But we love the trifecta. When we have our line and we have the implied probability of the line below it, these 3 statistics are what we compare the finish rates of the 2 fighters combined at the UFC level, the benchmark for the division, and the implied probability of the line. When we get a plus number on all 3 of them, it's telling us that the analytics like it. And also, stylistically, it's just beautiful, right? You got a guy in Santos who gives you 5 minutes of hell, and then he's pretty much going to check out because he's 42 years old. He's not a spring chicken anymore. The R word has been coming out of Santos's mouth. So I think that he might come out here and fight like he's double parked, give you his best 5 minutes, Try to get Jared Gordon out of there. He knows it's at altitude. He knows he's got a shit gas tank. So he's probably going to come out there and do what he thinks that he can do, which is take the guy that's got knocked out inside the distance in all 5 of his losses and go out there and knock his ass out. You got like a 7-inch reach advantage over him. He's 6 inches taller. And then if he doesn't, hey, let the dude take you down, lift up your chin, let him put that arm underneath there. You tap out, you do the little tappy tap, you leave your gloves in the ring, and then you go off and crush ass in Rio de Janeiro for the rest of your life. He's a good-looking guy. He's in great shape. Multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. Leo Santos is going to do just fine without setting foot into that UFC cage. So plus 120, Brady. I love this show, and you and I are both extremely busy. Sometimes I don't even really get a look at these lines in detail by the time we go live. I'm betting this, dude. I'm betting that fight doesn't go at plus 120. Love that bet. Analytics love it. The stylistic components of this matchup love it. And I love that this fight is at altitude. I'm going to be taking that bet.
Yep, I will be betting it too as well. What are your thoughts on that scorecards equals no action though on Santos? Because Gordon's been finished a ton, man. So I was kind of taking a look at that. It was plus 155. What are your thoughts on that one?
So I like that, right? It's better than what you're getting. I mean, it's not as good as what you're getting on the money line. You know, what I got Santos at plus 260 yesterday. Or maybe it was the night before. I think it might have even been Sunday night or Saturday night that I got that. But the scorecards equals no action worries me a little bit if you're betting Santos, because I think he can be finished inside the distance, even by Jared Gordon, just due to the fact that this is at altitude and, you know, that Santos is 42 years old. So he might have both feet out the door. He might be showing up for a check here. We don't know. But I think it's a good look because, and I also think that Santos round 1 is a fantastic look because this dude, you know, he's definitely very explosive early in fights. That body kick that he landed on Guida pretty much had him out of there. He showed really bad fight IQ because he could have just taken that dude's back and choked him out. But Keith Peterson, you know, if he's the ref again, I'll bet you anything Keith Peterson is not the ref because, you know, if Santos is like, I am not fucking fighting again if you put that dude in there with me.
Yeah, I don't blame him because what the heck was that? Santos by KO is plus 700. That's pretty interesting. I was kind of surprised to see a line like that. And then Santos by KO in round 1 is plus 1500. I thought that was very interesting. And that's on Bet Online too. So I think maybe FanDuel gets out a better line than that, which would be nuts because plus 1500, I feel like that's how he wins. Round 1 KO.
I agree with you. I might be taking just a little bit of a shot on that, even though I'm already 1 unit deep on the Santos money line. That kind of, you know, when you're talking about here, let's just do it. What did you say? Plus 1500?
Plus 1500 round 1 KO.
What's the implied probability of that? We know it because we got it in the prop template here. 6.25%. I think he's got a 6.25% chance. I think he fucking 99% knocked out Guida in the first round. The only person who didn't realize it in the entire fucking building was Keith Peterson. I'm never going to forget that. I had so many units on goddamn Santos that night. That one hurt, dude. 3.3 units down the goddamn toilet because of that neck tattooed freak.
Yeah, I had Santos straight, and I had Santos to win in either round 1 or round 2. That hurt. That was like a 5-unit swing for me.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, man, prop template loves violence here. The analytics love it. The stylistic matchup loves it. That's my favorite prop bet of the show so far, Brady.
There we go. I like it. That one stuck out to me as well. You know what else sticks out to me, Weezy? Some violence in this fight. We have Tyson Pedro going against Harry Hunsucker. And this has potential to be the widest fight doesn't go decision line we've ever seen. Bet Online has it at minus 1,000. If you guys don't know, on Bet Online you can't parlay props, and apparently this week they're not even letting you parlay money lines at this point. So they have it minus 1,000, right? FanDuel and DraftKings, you are able to parlay. They're going to put the fight doesn't go decision at like minus 1,500, something crazy. I know Bovada has it at 1,100 already, which is a shame, but, you know, how can you blame him? This is a Harry Hunsucker fight. Harry Hunsucker has been to the second round 0 times in his entire career. And I was talking to Weezy last night, And I told him that Hunsucker has actually been over a half of a round only twice. 10 of his 12 fights finish under one half of a round. It's madness. But yeah, the over under, the over 1.5 is plus 360. The under 1.5 is plus or minus 460. That opened up at minus 250. Would have loved it there. And then yeah, the fight goes is minus 600. The fight doesn't go is minus 1,000. It seems like 2 weeks in a row we've had these fights that everybody knows they're going to finish in round one. But they just don't make them bettable. Like I'm going back and looking right now in the Ontiveros Benitez fight, the under 1.5 was minus 225, right? And we thought that was like wide. And then in the Terrence McKinney fight, the under 1.5 was minus 215. So minus 215 for the McKinney, like minus 225 for the Benitez. This is minus 450 to the under 1.5. It's madness, but and it's gonna hit. But my goodness, you can't bet it. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare the benchmark for the division, to the fight doesn't go, the under 2.5 and the under 1.5, you're overpaying by 30%, 26.75%, and 35.6%. But there's a reason. It's because when you compare, Hunsucker and Pedro's UFC finish rates to the divisional finish rate, it's 29.27% better. It's 31.25% better when you compare it to the under 2.5, and it's 33.8% better when you compare it to the under 1.5. So they make you pay up for these bets. Look, long story short, this is unbettable. Me and Brady were joking that like every bet that you have this week, you can make it a parlay. Just parlay it with the fight doesn't go to decision. Now that we know that Wu Yanan's in the Wu-Tang clan, and I've got the picture to prove it, we can just say, all right, Wu Yanan plus 115. Nah, son, not anymore. Now she's fucking plus 125, bitches, because we're parlaying her with the fight doesn't go to decision for Hunsucker, which is a sure thing. So Harry Hunsucker would die of cardiac arrest if the fight went more than 6 minutes, especially after the weight cut. So, yeah, I mean, this fight is finishing inside the distance, and Vegas is telling you, we know that, and we're not letting you even parlay this shit. So, I mean, as fun as this fight is going to be, and as sure thing that it is that, this fight finishes inside the distance, there's damn near nothing that we can do about it. But yeah, don't bet the fight goes here. You're just flushing your money down the toilet. No matter that the analytics are telling you, oh my God, you're getting a 25% break. Don't do it. Don't save your money.
Yeah, and it sucks because the McKinney fight, I was really confident McKinney would sub him round one. He did. Benitez, I was really confident he would knock Benitez round one. He did. This fight, I'm really confident Pedro's going to knock out Hunsucker, and he is going to. But they're just not letting you bet it. Like, what's going on? I mean, give me a bettable line here. Minus 1,000 for the fight doesn't go. You've never seen lines like this ever. But rightfully so. It's a Harry Hunsucker fight. I'm curious to see what they put. The fight won't start round two at, but even that's probably going to be juiced to the tits here. So, Yep, this fight is going to finish. Hot take, and it probably does finish in round one, which is another very hot take there. But I think we can move on to the next fight. It is a heavyweight fight. Alexandr Romanov going against Marcin Tybura. The over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 rounds is minus 175 on BetOnline. The under 1.5 is plus 145. The fight goes to decision is plus 135. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 295. This is on BetOnline, but on 5Dimes, they have the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 160, which is a massive difference. And the fight goes to decision at plus 120. So big, massive difference between the two books there on the price, but BetOnline is making you pay for some violence.
Yeah, if you have 5Dimes, lay the hammer on that fight doesn't go. That line doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. Fight doesn't go at minus 295. 75% implied probability, damn near. We're overpaying by 11.56% when we compare the divisional finish rate to the implied probability of this line, because the divisional finish rate is sitting around 63% for heavyweight fights, but we're paying 74%. And when we compare the fighter finish rates, we're overpaying by almost 20% here, because these guys at the UFC level, have only finished 55% of their combined fights, right? So when you compare that 55% number against the 74% implied probability of the line, you see you're overpaying there. And over here, for the fight goes to decision, 29.85% implied probability. We got the trifecta here, Brady, and we got a fat trifecta. 7.03% break when we compare the benchmark to the implied probability. 15.15% break when we compare the fighter finish or decision rates in this case to the implied probability of the line. And 8.12% break when we compare the fighter decision rates to the divisional decision rate. So what this tells me is that this thing opened a lot closer to sanity, and now the people have went insane thinking that Alexandr Romanov is going to go through a grappler of the level of Marcin Tybura's quality like he did guys that can't grapple for shit. Chase Sherman, yeah, of course he submitted Chase Sherman. So did Fat Collier. Of course he got Marcus Rogerio de Lima, who I still to this day think he might have faked being put out by that forearm choke. It looked like he just closed his eyes, like your parents came into your room when you were 7 and checked to see if you were sleeping yet. I don't know, man. This one here, I like that fight goes to decision at plus 235. Not as a parlay piece, obviously, because it's a very low probability. But look, Tybura is a very, very good grappler, very good takedown defense. So, yeah, plus 235 is screaming at me. The analytics love it.
Yeah, and I'm actually picking this fight to go to decision as well, which is interesting. But yeah, the over-under opened up at minus 125 for the over 1.5, and it's gotten a lot of love there, minus 175. Yeah, I don't hate the over 1.5. Even like minus 125 would have been awesome, but even minus 175 for that over 1.5, I don't mind. That fight goes at plus 235. I think it is super live, or at least more live than the line does indicate. Obviously, a huge sweat, especially if Romanov gets on top of Tybura and starts doing those King Kong hammer fists. But yeah, I think if anything, it'd probably be a small sprinkle in that fight goes decision. Don't know if I'll get there, but yeah, I think the value is there.
The prop template loves it. Almost a 30% break when you add up these three numbers. 7 plus 15 plus 8 is 30. And we've got a little bit of a change there to add up to. So yeah, the analytics love it, man. I think the line has went too far one way, and you could get in at plus 235 now and probably maybe even arb out when this thing swings back the other way like a pendulum.
Yep, I think that's definitely on the table there as well. All right, we have 3 fights left. We have Merab Dvalishvili going against Jose Aldo. We have the over-under at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 rounds is minus 210. Under 2.5 rounds is plus 170. The fight goes decision, minus 190. The fight doesn't go decision is plus 150. Weezy, what is sticking out on this one here?
So not much is sticking out. It's kind of a weird one because Jose Aldo has been in so many 5-round fights that the analytics are a little bit messed up here because his ability to go over 2.5 rounds but still be able to finish fights, it's a lot more likely that that's going to happen. So, when you compare the fighter decision rates to the implied probability of the line, we're only getting a 1.23% break at minus 190 fight goes to decision, but we're getting a 14.4% break because it's minus 210 here, but Aldo's been over 2.5 so many times, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the fight didn't finish inside the distance. So we got a guy in Aldo who's got very good takedown defense, but is not much of a finisher down at 135. I like the fight goes for this spot. We're overpaying by 15% when we compare the divisional decision rate, which is around 50%, to the 65% implied probability of the line. But when we go over here, and we got to keep in mind that Jose Aldo has been to decision 11 of 19 times, and a lot of those are 5-round fights, not 3-round fights, that this fight probably does go over. It's juiced, but 77.78% of Dvalishvili's fights have seen the scorecards, 58% for Aldo. So 64.3% have seen the scorecards here. And we're only paying 65% here. And it's a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. So even though it looks really overpriced, it's not as overpriced as you would think. So I kind of like this spot for the fight goes. And I think it's a decent parlay piece here.
Yep, I was looking at that as well. I was looking at the over 2.5 rounds on DraftKings. They have it at like minus 205, something like that. So I was looking at that. But yeah, it's something I might be playing. Whether I do parlay it with something, maybe you could parlay it with the Hunsucker under, or the fight doesn't go, get a little bit better of a price if you want to. But yeah, minus 205, I actually don't hate that. I think this fight does go over more often than not. I don't see Merab finishing Jose Aldo. If there is a finish, it is probably Aldo knocking out Merab, but Merab has that crazy toughness that he showed off in his last fight. I think the over in the fight goes makes a lot of sense, and you're not paying a ton for it. So that is a spot I'm highly considering, Weezy.
Agreed, man. I like that spot as well.
Sounds good to me. All right. So let's move on to the co-main event here. We have Paulo Costa going against Luke Rockhold. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 minus 150, the under 1.5 plus 120. The fight goes to decision, plus 250. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 325. FanDuel has props out. FanDuel has the fight doesn't go at minus 320. And just taking a look at 5 Dimes. 5 Dimes has, for some reason, the fight doesn't go at minus 195, which I would love that line. But on BetOnline, it is minus 325, unfortunately.
Man, you talk about violence. 32 of 36 combined pro fights for Costa and Rockhold have finished inside the distance. That's 89%. That's just a ton, dude. That's like it's just a ton. So, and 88% of their UFC fights. So they're finishing their fights and getting finished at just as good of a rate at the UFC as they were outside of it. So total violence here. And then you got a guy in Rockhold who hasn't fought in over 3 years. And his last 5 fights have finished by knockout. So fight doesn't go to decision. Parlay piece here. Yes, we're overpaying by 21.55% when we compare the benchmark to the implied probability of that line. But the reason is that we're underpaying by 11.75% when we compare these guys' finish rates to the implied probability of the line, which means that these guys are finishing at almost 90%, and we're only paying 76%. And then when we compare the fighter finish rates to the divisional finish rate at 185, they're finishing at a 33.3% better rate. So fight doesn't go even that under 2.5 where we can find that alternate under. It looks pretty good too. And we're only overpaying by about 8.7% when we look at that under 1.5, Brady. So that's a little bit more value if you think that this thing just finishes quickly, because Costa could get him out of there quickly, dude. All it takes is one from Paulo Costa, and Rockhold's going to be sleeping. And we know that Rockhold's a really good striker in his own right, a fantastic kickboxer. He could land a big shot as well, but I think Costa's pretty damn durable. Other than getting finished by the champ, nobody's ever finished him. So, yeah, love the fight doesn't go here. That's going to be a top ticket parlay piece here.
Yep, I cannot agree more. Looks like 5 Dimes has the under 2.5 at minus 150. That'd be awesome. And then, of course, the minus 195 would be awesome as well. So, yeah, parlay piece at this point, but I'm hoping like maybe DraftKings gets out like that alternative 2.5 and messes it up. Minus 150 would be great for that. But yeah, parlay piece for sure for the fight doesn't go at this point. But I'm curious to see what DraftKings gets that 2.5 out at. All right. We'll move on to the main event here. We have Kamaru Usman going against Leon Edwards. We have the over/under set at 4.5 rounds, over 4.5 minus 155, under 4.5 plus 125. The fight goes decision minus 140. The fight doesn't go decision is plus 110. Another tricky one here. I think this fight does go to decision, but just the power that Usman has been showing his last several fights kind of scares me away from that a little bit. 7 knockdowns for Usman in his last 5 fights. The power seems to finally be translating. I think he had maybe one knockout in his first 10 fights, and now all of a sudden this guy's like a murderous power puncher. So I think it does go to decision though, but the power of Usman's been showing is kind of scaring me away from that. Probably one I won't be betting on, but curious to see what the stats say here, Weezy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't finished my 5-round prop template here yet, but we do have 5-round analytics here. And welterweight division, fight doesn't go to decision about 47.5% of the time. And think about that. If you look at these other numbers, flyweights finishing at 62%, bantamweight 60%, featherweight 56.5%. Look at lightweights, 71% in 5-round fights. And then below welterweight, 58%, 73%, and 79%. So it's very strange. Welterweight fights that are 5 rounds finish at by far the lowest percentage out of any weight class men's in the UFC. So whenever you're betting an over or a fight goes in a 170-pound fight at its 5 rounds, the analytics are blessing that. So we know that the 47% rate is what it's at here. We're paying 60% for fight goes. So that means we're overpaying by about 7% because these things are going to decision 52.5% of the time. Fight goes. But Usman's fights are going to decision a lot more than that. Usman at the UFC level, 10 out of 14 times. Or I'm sorry, 10 out of 15 times. So 2/3 of his fights are going to decision. Leon Edwards, it's 78.5%. So these guys are going to decision 72% of the time. This is 60% on the line right now. And then we also know that the divisional finish rate for these fights are the lowest out of any men's division. So, and then add to the fact that Leon Edwards doesn't do shit. Right? I mean, if you're betting violence on this fight, just know that this guy doesn't do shit. And he's going to be standing in front of Kamaru Usman, who he knows took him down, who he knows ground him out. So he's probably even going to be less likely to engage. This guy's been sitting around doing jack shit for the last 3 years. He's had one fight. They gave him a title shot. And believe you me, if you think Leon Edwards is going to go out there trying to finish people now for the first time in his fucking career in the biggest fight of his life, think again. I think this fight goes to decision, and minus 150 is probably the way to do it. And you know what else? Maybe a Kamaru Usman finish only prop could be an interesting way to play this one.
Yep, Kamaru Usman finish only, at least on Bet Online right now, is minus 200. I forget what it was on FanDuel, but it's probably around there as well. I think Usman by decision is interesting, minus 110 on FanDuel. I think Usman 4-5 decision is interesting, which I think I saw at like minus 140 something on FanDuel as well. I think that's a good way to play it, but I think this fight does go the distance. And I don't think Usman's going to go out there and really strike with Leon Edwards much, honestly. I think he's going to come in there and kind of grind him out against the cage, take him down, maybe strike with him a little bit, but I think Usman's game plan is going to be to get this down to the mat. So, I'm kind of liking that fight goes in the Usman 4-5 decision.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Like you said, 4-5 decision for Usman. This is at altitude. Usman trains at altitude. And maybe Usman will be like, with the last 4 fights that he's had, I think this is probably the easiest fight, but you never know, man. I mean, Edwards doesn't make mistakes. I mean, he doesn't do shit, but he doesn't leave you many openings either. So it's going to be an interesting fight, but I think we're going to decision here.
Sounds good to me. All right, Weezy, so a quick recap of anything that stuck out, and then we can look for the PP.
So the Romanov plus 235 fight goes to decision is a trifecta right here. And then even that over 1.5 at minus 175, that's a 63% implied probability, 7.25% better than the bench, worse than the benchmark, but 11.36% and 18.62% when we're comparing the fighter over 1.5 rates at the UFC level to the implied probability of the line and to the benchmark. So I think over 1.5 for Tybura Romanov could be a piece that we throw in the parlay here. I've been saying it all week. I think that the Hunsucker fight finishes inside the distance.
Bold.
I mean, look, that's what we got to do, dude. That's what we got to do. So let's put that one in there, just because it's fun and we know that it's going to happen. So minus 1,000, it's parlayable. Let's go. What else stuck out? Oh, Costa Rockhold fight finishes inside the distance. I think those 3 bets are fantastic. And then from there, I think we can do the Aldo Dvalishvili over 2.5. Okay. And you know what? We also like that Santos Gordon fight doesn't go. That's a bet that I'm going to be making. It's plus 120, but like that as well, we can add that. Woodson Saldana, we didn't see much. Maverick Young, it's just overpriced in my opinion, the violence. Fletcher Lucie, not seeing much. Albazi Figueiredo, not seeing much. Oh, Lucie, Altamirano, fight doesn't go. Those are my favorite bets.
Sounds good. So it looks like the over 1.5 for the Romanov. The fight doesn't go in the Hunsucker. The fight doesn't go in the Costa. The over 2.5 in the Aldo. And then all we have right now is the under 2.5 in the Serta de Silva. That comes out to plus 449, and that is a 5-leg parlay. But do you want to do like a 2 or 3 legger for plus money?
Yeah, let's do the Costa Rockhold fight doesn't go, the Pedro Hunsucker fight doesn't go, and the over 1.5 for Tybura Romanov. That should be plus money.
That comes out to plus 126. Nice.
Yeah. And then from there, from the plus 126, that's the official probability parlay. Then we can start adding in Aldo Dvalishvili over 2.5. Santos Gordon fight doesn't go. And Lacerda Altamirano fight doesn't go. And if you want to get you want to get like funny like that, then we'll do the full 6 legs. But then from there, UFC Egg is going to have to pick out our spots that we gave, and like I said, the last leg is going to be the over in the Yanan Pudilova fight.
Yes, even though she is part of the Wu-Tang clan, it's still hard to trust it.
You got that right, man.
All right, we got Kiwi with the big dono, $20. Kiwi, appreciate you helping support the MMA engine. Appreciate you hanging out. Pretty much every stream you're in here, so do appreciate that a lot. And yeah, thank you for hanging out with us, and thank you for the dono, man. Thank you all of you for hanging out with us on a Monday. We are an hour and 7 minutes in. We went through all the fights here, picked up some pretty solid spots, gave out a pretty good parlay that I'm looking at. So all that's left, Weezy, is letting the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week. You have a very, very, very special interview tomorrow, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Jay Perrin. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. Yeah, me and Lou Becci are going to be talking to Jay, getting inside his head, trying to figure out what he thinks the result of this fight is going to be and how he's going to get that result achieved. Can't wait to talk with Jay the Joker Perrin tomorrow night on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. If you like these stats that you saw here and the prop template that you saw here, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Uncle Weezy. You can check out that Patreon for $20 a month. I'll give you access to all these analytics. And for $5 a month, we do the advanced stats and the matchup stats for all the fights on the card. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time for Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. We'll break down all 13 of these fights, finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And on Wednesday, you can find me on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show with Brady, with Monk, and with Gordo. And Wednesday night, 10:30 Central Time, Ask Weezy on the Uncle Weezy YouTube channel. You guys, thank all of you for joining us on a Monday night here for Probability. Thank you, Kiwi. Thank you, our other guy, for the donation. I forgot his name already, but we hadn't seen him in here before, but he donated. Appreciate Jack, was it? Yeah, Jack to Berlin. Jack. Yeah, and then if hopefully these bets hit, we're going to be stacking cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 278 before the week off. So let's get it. That is the goal. You guys find me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. If you guys are looking for some Dana White Contender Series content, me and Lou did go live on MMA Engine, giving our bets and our plays there. Other than that, follow me on Pub Sports Radio. Me and Uncle Weezy do Stat Tickers on Sunday, and then the DFS show on Wednesday. And then look out for some live streams later this week, Friday and Saturday. Best of luck, everybody. UFC 278 should be a very, very fun card, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.